On the night Princess Evelina tried to flee the kingdom, forever the most feared ruler in the north stopped her carriage with blood on his sword and a crown in his hand. She called him a monster. The Duke King called her his future queen. But when betrayal shattered the royal court and her own family sold her for power, Evelina faced one terrifying truth. The only man dangerous enough to destroy her was also the only man willing to burn an empire to protect her. Would you marry the man your kingdom fears? Would you trust the ruler who conquered nations with war? And what happens when a woman who refuses to bow becomes the obsession of a king? Subscribe now and prepare for a royal romance filled with forbidden love, betrayal, revenge, and a fearless woman who dared challenge the most powerful ruler alive. Snow covered the kingdom of Vale Dorn like a burial cloth the night Princess Evelina Ashbourne disappeared from the royal palace. The guards searched every corridor while servants whispered prayers beneath trembling breaths. No one noticed the lone carriage slipping through the eastern gate beneath the storm. Inside the carriage, Evelina Ashbourne sat in silence, gripping the dagger hidden beneath her cloak. At 23, Evelina carried the beauty every royal court envied and the sadness no jewel could conceal. Long silver blonde hair rested over her shoulders in soft waves. Her pale skin glowed beneath the moonlight while sharp blue eyes stared into the darkness ahead. The kingdom adored her elegance, but feared her defiance. 3 days earlier, her father, King Aldrich, had arranged her marriage to Lord Cedric Beaumont, a cruel noble twice her age. The alliance would strengthen the dying throne of Vale Dorn. Evelina would become nothing more than a royal sacrifice. She refused. The carriage rolled deeper into the forest road until the horses suddenly screamed. Steel flashed outside. Bodies crashed into snow. The carriage door swung open violently. A tall figure stood beneath the storm wearing black royal armor lined with silver fur. Duke King Lucien Ravishade, the ruler of the Northern Empire. The conqueror kings feared. The man mothers used to frighten children. Lucien stepped closer slowly. At 31, his presence carried terrifying authority. Dark black hair framed his sharp features while silver eyes burned with cold intensity. A scar cut across one eyebrow, giving his face a dangerous beauty few women could ignore. Broad shoulders towered over everyone near him, and his black royal coat moved with the winter wind like a shadow. Dead soldiers surrounded the carriage. Evelina immediately reached for her dagger. Lucien noticed. A slow smile touched his lips. Interesting. Evelina pressed the blade toward him. Move away from my carriage. Lucien glanced at the trembling dagger without concern. Princess Evelina running from her own kingdom in the middle of the night. The rumors did not capture your courage. Evelina narrowed her eyes. What do you want? Lucien extended one gloved hand toward her. You. Silence fell between them. The storm itself seemed to pause. Evelina nearly laughed from disbelief. Absolutely not. Lucien remained calm. Your father has already agreed to sell your hand to a drunken beast. Come with me instead. I would rather die. Lucien stepped closer until his towering figure blocked the moonlight. You misunderstand, Princess. This was never a request. The northern soldiers surrounded the carriage completely. Evelina realized escape was impossible. Still, she lifted her chin proudly. I'll never be your queen. For the first time, Lucien smiled fully. A dark, amused smile that sent heat rushing through her chest despite herself. Too late. You already are. The Northern Empire welcomed Evelina with fear rather than celebration. The black fortress of Ravenshade stood high above frozen cliffs, surrounded by endless forests. Massive towers pierced the gray skies while banners bearing silver wolves danced through the winter wind. Every servant bowed deeply the moment Lucien entered the castle beside Evelina. Yet the whispers followed her everywhere. The stolen princess. The unwilling queen. The woman dangerous enough to survive the Duke King. Lucien escorted Evelina through endless halls lit by fire torches. Despite the castle's cold appearance, luxury filled every corner. Golden chandeliers hung above marble floors. Ancient paintings lined the walls. Velvet curtains framed enormous windows overlooking the icy mountains. Lucien stopped before towering double doors. Your chambers. Evelina crossed her arms. Am I your prisoner or your guest? Lucien opened the doors slowly. That depends entirely on you. The room beyond stole her breath. A grand fireplace crackled warmly beside shelves overflowing with books. Silver candles illuminated elegant furniture carved from dark oak. A massive bed draped in royal blue silk rested near the balcony overlooking the kingdom. Evelina turned toward him suspiciously. Why bring me here? Lucien removed his gloves carefully. Because your kingdom is collapsing. And because your father plans to kill you after the wedding ceremony. Her heartbeat stopped briefly. You lie. Lucien stepped closer. Do I look like a man who wastes time lying? Evelina searched his silver eyes. There was cruelty inside them. Danger too. But not deception. Lucien handed her a sealed letter. She broke the seal immediately. The handwriting belonged to Lord Cedric. Once the marriage is completed, Princess, Evelina will no longer threaten the throne. King Aldric has agreed her death will appear accidental. Her hands trembled. Her own father had signed beneath it. Pain struck deeper than any blade. Lucien watched silently while fury and heartbreak battled across her face. Evelina looked away, quickly refusing to cry before him. What do you gain from this? Lucien studied her carefully. A queen strong enough to stand beside me. Days passed within Ravenshade Castle, yet Evelina remained determined to hate him. Unfortunately, Lucien Ravenshade made hatred difficult. He ruled with terrifying discipline but unexpected fairness. Servants respected him rather than feared punishment. Children ran freely through the castle courtyards. Even wounded soldiers spoke of him with loyalty. Evelina noticed everything. One afternoon, she wandered into the royal training grounds where knights sparred beneath falling snow. Lucien stood among them wearing black combat attire instead of royal robes. Sweat glistened against his neck while he effortlessly defeated 3 armed men alone. The sight nearly stole her breath. Power radiated from him naturally. Every movement carried lethal grace. Lucien suddenly glanced toward the balcony where she stood watching. Their eyes locked instantly. Heat rushed through her chest again. Annoyed with herself, Evelina turned to leave. Lucien appeared behind her moments later. You stare often for a woman who claims to despise me. Evelina folded her arms. I was observing your soldiers. A dangerous lie, Princess. His voice lowered. You were watching me. Evelina hated how accurately he read her. Lucien stepped closer slowly. Close enough for his scent of cedar and winter smoke to surround her. Why are you afraid of wanting me? Evelina looked directly into his eyes. Because men like you destroy everything they touch. Something dark crossed Lucien's expression briefly. Perhaps. But you still haven't stopped looking at me. That night, Evelina could not sleep. The storm outside rattled the castle windows while thoughts of Lucien haunted her mind. She remembered his eyes during training, the rough depth of his voice, the dangerous gentleness hidden beneath his brutality. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Before she answered, the chamber doors opened. Lucien entered carrying a silver tray with tea. Evelina blinked in surprise. Kings deliver tea personally now. Lucien placed the tray beside the fireplace. Only for stubborn princesses refusing dinner. Evelina frowned. How did you know I skipped dinner? Lucien sat across from her calmly. I know everything happening inside this castle. She believed him. Lucien poured tea into delicate cups. For several quiet moments neither spoke. Then Evelina asked the question burning inside her mind. Why did you never marry before now? Lucien stared into the fire. Because every woman wanted my crown. Not me. His answer carried unexpected loneliness. Evelina studied him differently then. Beyond the terrifying ruler existed a man carrying invisible scars. Lucien met her gaze again. You are the first woman who looked at me with hatred instead of greed. Evelina nearly smiled. That hardly sounds romantic. Lucien leaned closer. No, but honesty rarely is. Weeks turned into months. Winter slowly surrendered to spring. Against every instinct, Evelina began falling for the man she once considered a monster. Lucien challenged her constantly. He argued with her during royal meetings, listened when she spoke, trusted her opinions. Unlike every man in her father's court, Lucien never treated her like decoration. He treated her like an equal. The realization terrified her more than anything. One evening they attended a royal banquet filled with northern nobles. Evelina wore a silver gown flowing elegantly around her figure, while diamonds shimmered against her pale skin. Every eye followed her entrance beside Lucien. The Duke King himself could not stop staring. His silver gaze darkened possessively as she moved through the ballroom. Lord Marcus Vale approached them during dinner. Marcus was handsome, wealthy, and infamous for charming married women. His smile lingered too long on Evelina. Princess Evelina, your beauty surpasses every rumor. Lucien placed his wine glass down slowly. Careful, Marcus. The warning beneath his calm voice chilled the entire table. Marcus laughed nervously. Of course, my king. Evelina noticed the dangerous tension immediately. After Marcus left, she leaned closer toward Lucien. Were you jealous? Lucien answered without hesitation. Yes. The honesty startled her. You admit it so easily. Lucien's gaze remained fixed on her. You belong beside me. The idea of another man touching you makes violence seem reasonable. Heat rushed through Evelina's body. You speak like a savage. Lucien smirked slightly. And yet you are blushing. Later that night, Evelina stood alone on the palace balcony overlooking the moonlit kingdom. Music echoed faintly from the ballroom behind her. Lucien approached quietly. The silver moonlight reflected against his black royal attire, making him appear almost unreal. Beautiful and dangerous. Evelina spoke without turning. The nobles fear you. They should. She faced him finally. Do you ever tire of being feared? Lucien stepped beside her, overlooking the kingdom below. Fear keeps kingdoms alive. Love destroys them. Evelina searched his expression. Who taught you that? Pain flickered briefly through his silver eyes. My father. Silence settled between them. Then Lucien gently touched her hand for the first time. Not possessively. Not forcefully. Carefully. Like she was something precious. Evelina's heartbeat thundered. Lucien lifted her hand, slowly pressing his lips against her knuckles. The cold, ruthless conqueror looked at her with devastating softness. Everything inside Evelina shattered. She kissed him first. Lucien froze briefly before pulling her against him with restrained hunger. The kiss burned through every wall between them. Years of loneliness, pain, desire. All of it collided beneath the moonlight. Evelina tangled her fingers through his dark hair while Lucien held her like a starving man terrified she would disappear. When they finally separated, both struggled to breathe. Lucien rested his forehead against hers. You're dangerous for me. Evelina smiled softly. The feeling is mutual. For the first time in years, Lucien Ravenshade looked truly happy. Their happiness did not last. 3 weeks later, a messenger arrived from Vale Dorn carrying devastating news. King Aldrich was dead, murdered inside his royal chambers. Evelina stared at the letter in disbelief. Despite everything he had done, he remained her father. Pain twisted through her chest. Lucien immediately ordered preparations for travel. You are returning with me to Vale Dorn. Evelina looked up sharply. The nobles there despise you. Lucien calmly fastened his sword belt. Then they can despise me to my face. The journey south lasted 4 days. Crowds gathered silently as Lucien and Evelina entered Valadorn's capital. The once glorious kingdom now rotted beneath corruption and fear. Starving citizens filled the streets. Soldiers extorted merchants openly. Even the palace looked lifeless. Inside the royal throne room, nobles immediately erupted into chaos. Lord Cedric Beaumont stepped forward furiously. Princess Evelina has betrayed Vale Dorn by consorting with our enemy. Evelina stood proudly beside Lucien. You mean the enemy who prevented my murder? Gasps filled the hall. Cedric's face darkened. Lies. Lucien casually tossed the signed letter onto the floor before the nobles. Read it yourselves. Silence followed as horrified whispers spread through the court. Evelina watched several nobles pale with fear. Cedric reached for his sword desperately. Lucien moved instantly. Within seconds, Cedric lay on the marble floor with Lucien's blade against his throat. The entire throne room froze. Lucien's silver eyes turned deadly cold. You plan to murder the woman who belongs to me. Cedric trembled beneath him. She was necessary for the alliance. Lucien pressed the blade harder. Wrong answer. Evelina touched Lucien's arm gently. Enough. Lucien looked toward her immediately. Only her voice could calm the violence inside him. Slowly he lowered the sword. Cedric collapsed shaking. Evelina realized then how terrifying Lucien truly was. Not because of his strength. Because entire kingdoms bent beneath his rage. That night, while nobles argued over succession, Evelina wandered alone through the palace gardens. Memories haunted every corner. Her childhood. Her loneliness. Her father's betrayal. Lucien found her beside the frozen fountain. Without words, he removed his royal coat, placing it over her shoulders. Evelina looked at him quietly. You could conquer this kingdom tomorrow if you wished. Lucien stood beside her beneath the moonlight. Yes, but I would rather give it back to you. She stared at him in shock. Why? Lucien turned toward her fully. Because you deserve something that belongs entirely to you. Emotion tightened her throat painfully. No one had ever placed her happiness above power. No one except him. Evelina stepped closer slowly. You love me. Lucien touched her cheek gently, with a violence that terrifies me. Tears filled her eyes unexpectedly. Lucien frowned immediately. Who hurt you? Evelina laughed softly through tears. That is your response to crying. Lucien wiped her tears carefully. Tell me who caused them. The possessive fury in his voice made her heart ache. Evelina wrapped her arms around him. No one matters anymore except us. Lucien held her tightly beneath the winter sky like a man protecting the last beautiful thing left in the world. The following morning, disaster struck. Princess Serafina arrived unexpectedly. Lucien's former fiancée. The woman northern nobles once expected to become queen. Serafina possessed stunning beauty with long golden hair and piercing green eyes. Elegant and manipulative, she entered the palace like a storm wrapped in silk. Every noble immediately bowed. Serafina smiled sweetly toward Lucien. You vanished without explanation. I feared you dead. Lucien's expression remained emotionless. Clearly your fears were unnecessary. Serafina's gaze shifted toward Evelina instantly. Cold calculation flickered behind her smile. So this is the famous princess. Evelina sensed danger immediately. Serafina approached gracefully. How fortunate. I always wondered what kind of woman could distract Lucien from his responsibilities. Lucien stepped beside Evelina possessively. Enough, Serafina. The warning beneath his voice did not discourage her. Instead, Serafina smiled wider. The kingdom needs stability, Lucien. Not scandal. The court whispers already. Evelina watched the tension carefully. Later that evening, Serafina cornered her privately inside the palace library. You should leave before you are destroyed. Evelina calmly closed her book. Threatening me seems exhausting. Serafina's expression hardened. You think Lucien loves you? How adorable. But men like him only love power. Once you become inconvenient, he will discard you like every woman before. Evelina rose, slowly meeting her gaze. Then why does his attention bother you so deeply? Serafina slapped her hard across the face. The sound echoed through the library. Before Evelina could react, another hand seized Serafina's wrist violently. Lucien. His silver eyes looked murderous. The temperature itself seemed to drop around him. Serafina paled instantly. Lucien released her wrist slowly. Leave. Serafina attempted composure. Lucien, you misunderstand. Leave before I forget you were once under my protection. Fear finally crossed Serafina's face. She fled immediately. Lucien turned toward Evelina. His gaze softened instantly upon noticing the red mark against her cheek. Without hesitation, he cupped her face carefully. Did she hurt you? Evelina almost smiled at the fury burning through him. I'll survive. Lucien leaned down, pressing a gentle kiss against the bruise. The tenderness nearly broke her heart. I should have protected you sooner. Evelina touched his face softly. You cannot fight every battle for me. Lucien rested his forehead against hers. Watch me try. That night, Evelina finally admitted the truth to herself. She loved him completely. Not the crown. Not the power. Lucien himself. The ruthless king who carried invisible wounds beneath his armor. The dangerous man who treated her like treasure rather than property. The following week the royal council gathered to determine Valadorn's future. Tension filled the throne room. Several nobles demanded Evelina marry another southern lord to preserve independence from Ravenshade. Others openly supported Lucien taking control. Arguments erupted endlessly. Finally, one elderly noble sneered toward Evelina. A woman cannot rule alone. Lucien stood immediately. The entire room fell silent. His silver eyes swept across the council like drawn blades. Princess Evelina possesses more intelligence than half the men inside this chamber. No one dared interrupt. Lucien continued coldly. Any man questioning her worth may challenge me directly. Silence deepened. Cowards lowered their eyes instantly. Evelina stared at him speechless. For years men had dismissed her voice. Lucien defended it like sacred law. The elderly noble cleared his throat nervously. No disrespect was intended. Lucien smiled dangerously. And yet disrespect was delivered. Evelina suddenly understood why kingdoms feared him. Because once Lucien loved something, he became utterly merciless protecting it. After the meeting ended, Evelina followed him onto the palace balcony. The sunset painted the kingdom gold beneath them. Evelina touched his arm gently. You did not need to threaten an entire council for me. Lucien looked at her calmly. I wanted to. She laughed softly. You are impossible. Lucien stepped closer. Yet you love me anyway. Evelina smiled. Unfortunately, yes. Lucien's expression changed instantly. Warmth softened the ruthless king completely. Say it again. Evelina stared into his silver eyes. I love you, Lucien. He kissed her fiercely beneath the sunset while bells echoed across the kingdom below. For the first time in generations, hope returned to Valadorn. But happiness always attracts enemies. 3 nights before their coronation, attempt assassins infiltrated the palace. Evelina awoke to screams echoing through the halls. Fire spread rapidly outside her chambers. Before panic fully struck, Lucien burst through the doors carrying a blood-stained sword. His face looked terrifying. Stay behind me. Smoke filled the corridors while soldiers battled assassins everywhere. Lucien fought through them like death itself. Every movement precise and brutal. Evelina witnessed men twice his size collapse before reaching him. One assassin suddenly lunged toward her from behind. Evelina grabbed a fallen dagger, instantly stabbing the attacker herself. The man collapsed beside her feet. Lucien stared briefly. Pride flickered through his expression despite the chaos. Fearless as always. They reached the courtyard, where northern soldiers finally secured the palace. Bodies covered the snow. Fire illuminated the darkness like war itself had arrived. Commander Rowan approached quickly. The attackers carried Seraphina's crest. Lucien's expression became pure ice. Prepare horses. Evelina caught his arm. Lucien. The fury in his eyes frightened even her. She tried again softly. Do not lose yourself tonight. Lucien touched her face carefully despite the blood staining his hands. She tried to kill you. Evelina stepped closer. And I survived. Please come back alive. Something vulnerable crossed his expression briefly. Lucien kissed her forehead gently before mounting his horse. By dawn, Seraphina's estate burned beneath northern soldiers. She was captured attempting escape across the border. When Lucien returned to the palace, his black coat carried fresh blood and ash. Evelina ran toward him immediately. Lucien held her tightly. For several moments neither spoke. Then Evelina whispered, "Is it over?" Lucien nodded once. "No one will threaten you again." She knew better than to ask what happened to Seraphina. Some questions were safer unanswered. Days later, the coronation finally arrived. Thousands filled the capital streets cheering as bells rang across Vale Dorn and Ravenshade together. Inside the grand cathedral, Evelina walked toward the throne wearing a breathtaking white royal gown covered in silver embroidery. A diamond crown rested against her silver blonde hair, while tears shimmered within her blue eyes. Lucien stood waiting beside the throne, dressed entirely in black royal attire with silver armor beneath his cloak. The most feared ruler in the world looked at her like nothing else existed. The priest spoke solemnly. "Do you accept this union freely?" Evelina remembered the terrified woman inside the carriage months ago. The woman who believed Lucien Ravenshade was nothing but a monster. Now she understood the truth. He was dangerous, ruthless, terrifying. But he loved her with a devotion powerful enough to reshape kingdoms. Evelina smiled softly, freely and completely. Lucien never removed his gaze from her. The priest placed the crowns upon their heads. King Lucien Ravenshade, Queen Evelina Ravenshade. The cathedral erupted with cheers. Lucien pulled Evelina closer before the entire kingdom. "You once told me you would never be my queen." Evelina laughed softly through tears. "I remember." Lucien kissed her hand gently. "You were wrong." Evelina looked at the people celebrating around them. At the kingdom finally free from fear and corruption. Then back at the man who changed her life forever. Perhaps. But so were you. Lucien raised one brow. "How?" Evelina smiled lovingly. "You believed crowns created queens. But love did." Their kiss beneath the cathedral bells became legend across generations. Not because a ruthless king conquered another kingdom, but because a fearless woman conquered his heart. And for Lucien Ravenshade, that victory mattered more than every throne in the world. If you enjoyed this royal romance filled with forbidden love, betrayal, fearless queens, and powerful kings, subscribe now for more unforgettable stories of passion, revenge, and happily ever afters.